Good afternoon, guys. It's working. Bring you a quick update on Bitcoin. Hope you guys are having a wonderful afternoon. We're looking at Bitcoin to the US dollar 4-hour chart on Coinbase. And last time we spoke, guys, Bitcoin had just broken down out of 10,000. We were looking for that bounce right here at that $9,400 zone. Remember we talked, guys, we had this entire area. To be fair, this actual block was not on here before, guys. But we were talking about this entire area of consolidation, basically between about 9,000, 8,900, all the way up to and including 9,400. Looking for a bounce. I think when we left off, guys, I told you I was looking for price to dip back down to around 9,300-ish, somewhere thereabouts, and then have a nice bounce up, possibly testing about 97, 98, maybe coming up and testing this 99.50 area of what was support, should start to possibly act as resistance, and I think it's going to be a major test to see if it actually does. Price did come back down a little bit lower into this zone, but of course, you know, if you were stacking your buy orders all the way down here, guys, expecting that bounce, you've done fairly well. Did get as low as about 9,100-ish before getting a very, very nice bounce here. Of course, to be fair, it was bouncing the entire time, so if you were just scalping this, guys, I mean, that was just easy money. Very, very easy money. Anyway, we got a very nice bounce here recently. From about that $9,100 zone up to and testing about almost 9,900 here. So coming up to this 9,950 zone, very, very close. It's going to be interesting to see if we reject very hard off of here or if price is able to break up above. Of course, a break above this 9,950 zone would be a sign that the bulls are not out of the fight quite yet. And as I discussed last time, guys, if I come over here, let me throw on the weekly. We still have not on the weekly decisively broken below this 8-day EMA, this 8-week EMA. The bulls have been defending this 8-week EMA very, very vigorously. In fact, we have not closed below this 8-week EMA since, let's see, we actually have not closed below it since February 11th was the last time we closed below the 8-week EMA here. So again, we've wicked below it, but the weekly has not closed below it. We've traded below it, but not closed below it. And so it's going to be very interesting this week to see if the bulls can close above this 8-week EMA. If that does happen, I will believe that we do have the chance to go for price to bounce here and possibly come much higher. If this does get broken down, if we get a weekly close below this 8-week EMA, which is going to be about 9,600-ish, then of course I think that's going to indicate potentially much lower prices, potentially coming back down. We've already almost tested 9,000, very, very close, but maybe coming back down, testing that $9,000 area again. The thing that's making this a little bit more difficult now, guys, is if I zoom out here to the daily. Of course, I mean, this was just a beautiful bounce off this $9,400 zone, guys, but if we zoom out here to the daily, we can see a few things. We can see that it's not just as simple anymore of if we get a decisive break below 9,400, then we're just going to come back down to this next major level, which is at about 8,900-ish, which I should actually mark on the chart there, but I don't quite have marked there yet. But that is going to be, in fact, let me mark that. All right, there we go, 8,900. So it's not going to be as easy. Yes, we do have a major support at 8,900. We can see that was resistance back here, resistance, 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 and then finally a nice break above. So there's no question that very likely will, in fact, it did back here already turn into support. That's what this entire consolidation zone between 9,400 and 8,900 was basing its base off of. So there's no question that is support. The question is, though, if this breaks down, could we immediately drop down to this $8,500 zone, or would we bounce? And really, it's not quite that simple here, guys, because we do have a couple bases that are just below that zone. So really, I could see us bouncing anywhere between, even if we broke below 8,900, really anywhere down to and including 8,500 would be a decent area for a bounce. So this is why I've told you before that adding to my long-term position, guys, again, my long-term hold that I do not trade. I've got two portfolios, trading portfolio that's split into three: swing trading, day trading, scalp trading. So that's my trading portfolio. My long-term hold portfolio is just that. I put things in there and I don't touch them. I told you I wanted to add to my long-term Bitcoin portfolio between 8,400 and 8,500. That is where I would be looking for a major possible bottom and a bounce reversal. Why is that? Because obviously it was an area of visual support, but of course, if we go back here looking at our CME gap, we can see that's exactly where those gaps are, between about 8,500 and 8,870-ish, somewhere thereabouts. So this denotes a lot of buy orders that are sitting down here waiting. We call that a demand zone, very light, or a support. A lot of buy orders are sitting down here waiting. Now, it doesn't mean that has to happen. It just, the chart suggests that. Again, could we fall through here like nothing, like it's not even there? Yeah, that's possible, and that's trading, and that's why you have stop losses. But the chart suggests a lot of buy orders between this $8,500 and $8,870 zone with this gap. So I will say trading is getting a little bit, well, it's getting a little bit more difficult here, even to the upside, because to the upside now, we do have, it's not just as easy as if we get a decisive open and close above 99.50 now, we're just going to head right back up to our $10,650 zone. We actually, with looking at the daily candles here, we actually put in an area of support right here at about 10,200-ish, somewhere thereabouts. Of course, we can see that that was support here, that was support on a wick here. Now, these wicks broke below it, but still only by a wick. So again, denoting support. And then, of course, we had these daily candles here, pardon me, also denoting area of support right there at about 8,200. So yes, even if we did break above 10, it could just be a quick measured move, and we could find a resistance right around that $8,200 area and then reject off that zone. Now, I will say, if we do get a decisive open and close above 8,200 on the 4-hour, I would even, you know what, I would even take a 2-hour above that. Then we probably come up here and test this $10,650 zone. And at that point, then we can start talking about maybe this being a bottom. But we are not there yet, guys. We are not there yet. Might this be a bottom? Yeah, it might be. But again, we are not there yet, guys. So don't get too excited. But if we, well, don't know what happened there. There we go. But if we do end up coming up here, guys, one thing that is interesting, if I pull my fib extension, and if I do for a second just kind of speculate that maybe that is a bottom there, we can see that right around that, actually, let me get it right on there. And let me get it right on there. There we go. We can see that right about at the $10,650 zone, that first fib level on our fib extension would be the 236, overlying perfectly right there, almost perfectly, right there at that $10,650 zone. So if this was a bottom, and again, if we break above 9,950, we can start talking about the possibility of this being a bottom. Now, will it be for sure? No, it will not be for sure. It will absolutely not be for sure. But we can start talking about that being a possibility if we start trading above 9,950. If we get a 4-hour open close about 9,950, and then of course, yeah, maybe I'll start looking at this as a target. But again, we do have potential resistance at about 10,200. So again, things are getting a little bit trickier, guys. It's not quite as easy as it was. Now, zooming out on the weekly, guys, the weekly is still overall, macro trend is bullish, micro trend is bearish, macro trend is bullish without question, guys. There's no question looking at this. And coming out here to the monthly, let me pull it out there. Looking at the monthly here, again, macro trend is bullish. We're just in a correction. And again, until we do break down below on the monthly, until we do take out about 8,500, which again, coincidentally, or as I like to say, not so coincidentally, coincides very nicely with the bottom of that CME gap. Until that is taken out, the monthly is bullish. So yeah, there is no question about it, guys, that the overall macro trend is bullish here. We also have the 8-month EMA on top of the 21. Again, bullish on top of the 55. Do have some light between the two, so no question the macro is bullish. That being said, zooming back into the daily here, guys, as I talked about yesterday, we did break below the 50-day EMA. Of course, we had our decisive break below the 21-day EMA on July the 15th. That was your sell signal. That was a major shift in the behavior of Bitcoin, and of course ended up following through. This is why I put so much importance on that 21-day EMA. Of course, we have a close below the 50-day simple. We have an open below the 50-day simple. Let's see if we can have an open and close below the 50-day simple, which would also be below the 55 exponential. If that does happen, again, that would be a sign that the bears are still controlling the market, and we could see lower prices. Again, I'd be looking for another drop at least down to test that $8,900, $9,000 to $8,900 zone, if not even lower, coming down to potentially that $8,500 zone. We'd have to wait and see kind of how it plays out. But as of right now, bulls are still fighting. If we can get on the daily back above the 50 simple, that would be bullish. Looking and zooming in here, we can see that the 8 exponential did cross below the 21. Again, that is a bearish sign, but again, let's see if we can get above the 50. If we can get above the 50 exponential, guys, that would be a bullish sign, at least temporarily, that the bulls may be trying to put a bottom in here and may be turning things around. Does that mean it will turn things around? No, don't misunderstand me. That is just a sign of a potential bottom. Remember, we put in major support here. Support is turning into resistance. That is bearish, and until we break that, what was support, that it is currently resistance, until that resistance gets broken, the trend is still bearish. Let's go ahead and zoom into the 4 hour. Looking at the 4 hour, guys, we actually have broken above the 8 exponential on the 4 hour. Let's see if we can continue to the upside here. Of course, we have a bearish setup. We've got the 55 on top of the 21 on top of the 8 exponential, a very, very bearish setup there, guys. And of course, we also have the 50 simple threatening to cross below the 200 exponent, or the 200 simple, which would give us a death cross, which would, on the 4 hour, just on the 4 hour, a technical death cross is referring to, traditionally refers to on the daily. So I don't want to get people too riled up here. But again, even if we get a death cross on the 4 hour, if we get that 50 simple crossing below the 200 simple, that would not be a good sign, guys, and would potentially signal lower prices to come. By lower, I'm going to be targeting about that $8,500 zone. So let's wait and see kind of how that plays out, or if that plays out, or if the bulls can fight that off. Again, let's have to wait and see. If we look at this overall trend, we've been looking for that. I've been calling for that 35 to 45% correction for quite some time now, guys. Remember, since Bitcoin's gone parabolic, there's never been a time where we haven't had a 35 to 45% correction at some point in time. This would be the first time. We are at about 35% now, I believe. Let's go ahead and check it out here. We are at, about 34.8. Yeah, we're at a 35% correction now. So yeah, that technically would fulfill that 35 to 45% correction that we've seen in the past, and potentially continue to the upside here. But remember, we could drop all the way down to that 45% correction as well and be just fine. And if we do drop down to about a 45% correction, that would bring us down to about 7,600-ish, somewhere thereabouts, and we do find support, as we've got marked off here, guys, at about 75.50, guys. That is a major area of support, has been marked out for quite some time. So again, if we come down here, we could come down here, bounce off here, and yes, it'll probably more than likely just shake out a bunch of weak hands and get a nice bounce and then continue to the upside here. So I will not become bearish until we do, overall on the macro trend, I will not become bearish until we take out 6,500. If and when we take out 6,500, then I'm going to start to think this entire thing, you can't call it a bear trap, because I mean, my gosh, we've been trending up since mid-December. It is now mid-July. So what is that? That's about 8 months we've been trending to the upside. So that's hardly a bull trap by any stretch of the imagination. You could call it a short-term bull run, but by any measure, it's been a bull run. We've been in a bull run here. It could be a short bull run, but 8 months, 7 months is a bull run. It just is. Could be a short one. It just is. And with also the volume that we've seen. So yeah. Anyway, all that being said, yes, could the bull run be over if we break 6,500, and we could be coming back down to potentially test these 2019 lows? Yes, if we break below 6,500. Until we break below 6,500, my bias is going to be bullish. Overall, again, overall, not micro, but macro. So let me wrap this up in a bow. So how am I trading this, guys? To be very, very honest, very carefully here, very carefully. Yes, if we get above 10,000, really 9,950, yes, it'll absolutely get my attention, especially if we get a 4-hour open and close above that zone. It'll absolutely get my attention, guys. But again, as I said, we do have major support or resistance sitting here at 10,200. So, yeah, I mean, maybe a move up there, but unless you're trading on a lot of leverage, guys, that's not really, there's really not a nice setup I can give you eyeballing. The only thing I can say is down here at about 8,500, if and when we do see that, I would be looking for a very, very nice bounce. And until we get back above, at least back above 10,650, but I really need to see us back above 11,050. If we get a 4-hour open and close above 11,050, I will start to look at higher targets. Of course, at least 11,500, but more than likely, I'll start to look at this 12,400 as a very, very likely target. So again, very small scalp trades here and there, but as far as anything that I can tell you that I can translate onto you guys, all I can do is show you these areas and you play it how you want. I would just say have tight stop losses until we do get down, until we do break back above 11,050. Have very, very tight stop losses, and I'll just go ahead and leave it there. And I'm going to get to your questions. We have quite a few questions now. And I haven't answered your questions in a while, guys. I apologize for that. It's just been, anyway, it's been life, and I can only do this. I've got to trade and spend time with the family at some point. All right, EOSI Alabama says that I'm going to try to cherry pick some of these guys. I'm not going to be able to go through each one, and I do apologize for that. But EOS Alabama says, can you please do an update on EOS? Yeah, man, let's look at EOS. All right, looking at EOS to the dollar, and I have not changed any of these support or resistance levels, guys. This has been the same chart that I've had on for, man, better part of 6 months, I think, at least most of this. Anyway, last time I don't even remember where we were the last time. I believe last time we spoke, we were trading right up here, sitting right on top of this area of support between about $5.90 and $6. I did tell you if this did end up breaking down, guys, if I can remember correctly, I told you that very likely we're going to be coming down to this 450 zone, but I said that we might find some support right in here at about $5.30. Price did break down here very briefly, actually bounced right there at that 530 area, actually just wicking below it, finding some support right at 530, and then just crashing down, bouncing perfectly right off of our 450 to 427 zone. So if you did scalp that, guys, if by chance you were, which you probably weren't, I haven't referenced EOS in so long, but a very nice scalp off of that. Of course, we could see that was major support in the past here. And then, of course, continuing down, I told you if this did break, then 350 was our next, very likely our next stop. And of course, we bounced nicely off this 350, guys. I did have a couple buy orders filled here. A couple buy orders. When I say a couple, I mean I had it laddered between about 360 and 345, which was this zone I have here. I just have it marked as 350. And all of those were filled. We in fact we wicked actually below to about 335, a little bit lower, but nonetheless we did get a very, very nice bounce here, guys. And where do I think it goes from here? I do think it very likely comes back up and tests about 410. That was the area of support that we were sitting at, right? In fact, did it already do that? It already did that, actually, so that's okay. It already did hit test 410. Let me go into the 4 hour here so I get a little better idea of what's going on. Okay, 4 hour is rejecting right off of the 21 exponential on the 4 hour here. So if we can break above this, and that's a big if we can get a 4 hour opening, we really need to see a 4 hour open and close above about 430. If we can get a 4 hour open and close above 430, I will think it wants to come up to about 475, and I'm going to need to see how it reacts off of 475. Could we potentially be putting in a bottom here? Potentially, yeah, but I don't want to get too bullish on anything at all yet, guys, because of course this is going to be at the mercy of Bitcoin. Let's go ahead and I think if I remember right, that was right around this. Actually, no, that actually did crash right below the 618 off of this entire move here, guys. So technically, that would suggest potentially moving down here to the 786. Let me just see if I can see where algos are trading right now. So yeah, actually, yeah, it looks like algos are actually using this as the pivot low, as we can see all the way down here at acknowledging most of these fib levels, guys. Certainly acknowledging the 50 bouncing there, certainly acknowledging the 618, and then just recently bouncing off of the 786 right here. So yeah, are we bottoming out? That really is the question here. It's going to be interesting. If we do come back down here and test 350, do I think it holds a second time? Yeah, I think it holds a second time, but I'm certainly not going to buy it, because if that does break down, if we get a decisive open and close below about 345, it's going to be a very, very quick drop to likely at maybe $3. As $3 is going to be a nice psychological, but maybe down here to this 275 to 250 zone. So we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. And actually, really, I should have $3 on there, because $3 is actually also a visual support. So that actually is support at $3, and that also coincides nicely with the 8865. So I would expect to bounce off that $3 range if and when we do, if we do break down there. Again, to the upside, in the short term, we've got to take out about 410. In the longer term, we really need to see it break up about 465. If we can get a 4 hour open and close above 465, we got a lot of room to run. We could easily find ourselves up at about 540, 545 very, very quickly, but that's a big if, and it's got a lot of work to do, guys. And again, I am not saying the bottom is in yet. We've got a lot of work to do. All right, VG Holdings. Hey, my friend, good to see you on YouTube, by the way. VG Holdings LLC, great guy. Says, I've learned so much since I found you on Tribe. You explain things in terms the average Joe can understand. Could you do a brief overview of what you're looking at on the histogram? What signs point to bullish, bearish divergence? Keep up the good work. Yeah, we can look at that real quick. And I'm not going to do a deep dive into divergence, hidden divergence, and all that. I mean, that's something that you can very easily Google. But just as far as on the histogram, this is going to be true with the RSI as well. You mean you use it the same way, but you're just looking for divergence from price, a difference between the behavior of the histogram in relation to price. So, for example, between prices, this point here and this point here, price created a lower low. And of course, look, we're overall in a downtrend here on a micro level. On this little trend here, we were in a downtrend, right? so we created a lower low. If I look at the exact same points on the histogram, just go straight down, what happened on the histogram? Histogram created a higher low on the bottom portion. Remember, we're in a downtrend. I'm looking at the bottom portion of the histogram there. Price created a higher low. Since we are in a downtrend, and since the price created a higher low on the histogram, that would suggest bullish divergence and would suggest a bounce to the upside. And of course, we did see that follow through with a nice little bounce to the upside. And we also saw that happen again. If we just fast forward in time here, what happened between this point here and this point? Price created a lower low once again. What happened to the histogram at the exact same point? This point to this point. The histogram created a higher low, suggesting a bounce. And what are we seeing right now? We are seeing a bounce. So again, it doesn't mean that it doesn't necessarily indicate a bottom, but it does indicate a potential bounce. Now, you also have things, if you're in an uptrend, then you're going to be, for regular divergence, you're going to be looking for differences in the upside of the histogram, to the top side of the histogram. Now, that doesn't mean you can't see divergence to the bottom side if you're in an uptrend, or it doesn't mean you can't see divergence to the upside if you're in a downtrend. Those are just called hidden divergence, and it plays a little bit differently. And I don't have time to get into all that right now. That's something that you can go study, the difference between bullish divergence and bearish divergence and hidden divergence. Bullish, hidden divergence, bullish, bearish divergence, hidden bearish divergence, hidden bullish divergence. Those are all things you can go and study, but I would encourage you, because it can get a little bit confusing. It's not just as simple as looking for divergence. You need to know if you're in an uptrend or downtrend and how that relates to the histogram itself, and that's where hidden divergence and regular divergence comes into play. And again, that's something that you can look at, but hopefully that answers your question. All right, and again, I'm cherry picking comments here, guys. I'm not skipping over anybody. This video will literally go for hours if I don't. So I just want, let's see. Jerry Metzler says, working, great content as always. Which exchange do you trade on for leverage trading? I'm in the U.S. I usually use BitMEX, but I do use some others. It's a little, it's a little tricky in the U.S. here, and I'll just leave it at that. Let's see. Nikolai says, thank you. If you have a chance, look at Lightcoin. Looks like it's bouncing between 100 and 105. Will it go down to 65, 75 level? Good level to accumulate. Thank you. Thank you, Nikolai. And I'm a little bit late. I know you put this on yesterday, but let's take a look at it anyway. All right, looking at Litecoin here, Litecoin to the dollar, and again, these are the same support and resistance levels I've had on since I've been doing Litecoin, since the last I did Litecoin for you guys. I haven't looked at it in quite some time, actually. Let's see, this is on the day. Of course, we did break down out of our symmetrical triangle here. Broke down very, very hard out of our symmetrical triangle. Initially found support right on that ascending support line here that we had discussed for quite some time, since it's been in place since Litecoin started going bullish back in December here. Bounced nicely off that one time, found $100 as support, and then of course just crashed below that ascending support line as you would expect. Didn't even acknowledge 91 there, which that was a very bearish sign. In fact, it did acknowledge it, just in the wrong way. It broke below, came back up. What should have been support acted as resistance, and then of course that was your signal that we were coming down lower. Now, it didn't make it down into this 74 to $65 zone, and that's where I really would have looked for major accumulation. And could it still get down there? It could. In fact, let me take a very quick look at something. Yeah, I mean, this would be a major area. If it does ever get down here, this would be a major area of accumulation. We got the golden pocket sitting down here right at about 70, which coincides nicely right in between that zone, give or take a little bit, especially if people are front running. So yeah, if anything below 74 down to 65 is an excellent zone for accumulation, as you said. Unfortunately, I just didn't, I was a little late on this analysis for you. I apologize for that. But we didn't even make it down that low, finding support right around 75. Bouncing nicely, of course. I'd like to see if we can get a daily closing back above 91 here. That would be temporarily bullish, but I wouldn't get too bullish off this just yet. Let me take a look at the daily. A little bit. Let me actually pull out here to the weekly. Weekly does look like it may be putting in a little bit of a. Actually, it may be definitely looking like a potential reversal there. Maybe. Bit of a hammer. So yeah, let's see if we can see if it actually does reverse. If it were to close right now, of course, we still have quite a few days left in the week here, so this is nothing. Just as of right now, not looking too bad, but that doesn't mean it can't change very, very quickly. Now, I will say that we do. Speaking of divergence, as we discussed before, we do have a higher low from our prior pivot low to this pivot low. If this is in fact the bottom, that's a big if. We would be putting in a higher low there, and if I pull out here to my RSI, Zoom in here, you can see we put in actually a lower low on the RSI. Now this is a good example of, now this isn't an overall, we're looking at the macro trend here on the weekly, right? So the overall we're in an uptrend. So in this particular case, I'm looking at the bottom of the RSI in an overall macro uptrend here, because again, I'm looking at the macro on the weekly. I know it can be confusing. Again, research this if this is confusing to you. But in this case, we're putting in a lower low on the RSI. This is actually, because I'm looking at this as a macro uptrend and I'm looking at the divergence at the bottom, that's called hidden divergence. And in this case, that would actually be hidden bullish divergence. And this would have actually indicated that bounce that we would have seen here. Now, more than likely, this divergence is already played out with this bounce. So let's wait. Could it go higher? Of course it could go higher, but I wouldn't be playing it based off of the divergence that I'm seeing now, because we've already seen that bounce, and that would have been something you would have wanted to spot ahead of time. Let me zoom in here to the 4 hour, see if we can kind of see what's going on here. If we can get a 4 hour open and close above 91, that would be a bullish sign. We are getting, let's see here. Actually, to be fair, we are showing a little bit of hidden divergence, hidden bearish divergence on the 4 hour, which is why we're probably finding some support here, which would suggest possibly coming back down to that 85-ish, maybe testing that 85 again, 85 region. If we break back below 85, I do think it very likely wants to come back and test about 70, 76, 75, 78-ish, somewhere thereabouts. And what I'm referring to is this divergence right here. Obviously, price created. If I look at price created a lower high as of right now. Now, this isn't yet confirmed because we don't technically have a top yet. We're still coming up here, but it is suggesting hidden bearish divergence, because now I'm looking at a micro trend in a downtrend, right? And in a downtrend, if I'm looking at the upside, that's going to be hidden divergence. In this case, because I'm looking at hidden divergence where a price created a lower high, the RSI created a higher high. That's hidden bearish divergence and suggests a breakdown, which is why we're seeing some resistance right here. Again, I know that's frustrating, guys. There's no way I can explain all this to you in a video. Just look up bullish hidden divergence versus regular divergence, and it'll explain it a little bit better. But right now, what do I think is going to happen here? It actually looks to me, just visually, like it may want to pop up here. We do see a little bit of resistance right around this $97 area, potentially turning this this major ascending support line into resistance potentially, and that would suggest a pop back up here to about 80, 98, 99-ish, and then potentially breaking back down to test 71. Let's see if we can get it open and close, 4 hour open and close above 91. That would indicate possibly coming up and testing that zone. If we don't get that, we break back down here below this 91, guys, and if we break below 88, I do think it's going to be a quick drop, at least to this 85. 85 breaks down, and we're looking at a drop back down to test these lows around 75-ish. But again, right now it actually looks like it's not looking. It's looking like it's hitting major resistance, and this is going to be a very pivotal point for on the micro level for Litecoin. All right, and again, I'm trying to cherry pick the comments that'll be most relevant to everybody here. Hourly Worker says, I'm interested in TA. Can you reference a source of where to learn, how to learn? I don't have a mentor. It seems everybody on YouTube is offering TA, and frankly, I don't like all the FOMO FUD on these on a lot of these channels too much. Thanks, I really like your channel. Well, thank you, Hourly Worker. I appreciate that, man. Thank you very much. And as I did, I recommended a few books for you here. First of all, always recommend paper trading. I did a video on paper trading, and if you're interested, I did post a link to that video if you want to learn how to paper trade completely free. I also gave you an index of books to trade. I would, a lot. If you're just learning to trade, All About Candlesticks by Wayne Corbett is definitely a good book. It's a little basic, but you'll definitely pick something up. Trading in the Zone is phenomenal by Mark Douglas. It's more psychology than anything, but my gosh, it's excellent. So I would definitely recommend that as well. Of course, Technical Analysis of the Financial Markets by John Murphy is excellent. So there's a couple references if you are interested, if anybody else is interested that wants to look them up. All right, JH says, thank you, good stuff as always. When using this method for the stock market, which time frames do you use for confirmation and front running respectively? 1 day, 4 hour crypto. Does it work equally well for stocks? Are there other important adjustments to consider, or is a chart a chart? Basically, a chart is a chart. Now, not all markets are the same, but yes, a chart is a chart. And what I mean by that is cryptocurrency, as I explained to you, JH, but for the benefit of everybody else, cryptocurrency, of course, if I see a 10% drop in a day on a major stock like Apple, that's going to get my attention. That's going to be very concerning. If I see cryptos drop in a day, it's just another day in the crypto market. That being said, the basic techniques that I use as far in technical analysis are very much the same, are almost exactly the same. Support, resistance, RSI, exponential moving averages, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Those are all basically the same. And yes, I do use the same time frames. It depends on if I'm swing trading, scalp trading, day trading, et cetera, et cetera. But yes, the techniques are all basically the same. All right, Lisl Mitchell says, "Hey, Work, I've been following you for ages and really appreciate your work. Just want to ask what you think about." Mr. Steve. And sorry, I don't mean to laugh at you. It's actually a very, very good question. It's just I try not to put too much emphasis on the news and the Trump tweets and all that stuff. Even though I know everybody's asking it, but I'm referencing this because I know people are interested. Yes, well, if the United States comes out and puts all kinds of regulations on Bitcoin, will it affect the price in the short term? Yes, it will. Price will drop. If the United States comes out and bans Bitcoin, of course it'll be devastating to the price of Bitcoin. But do I think that's going to happen? No, I don't. And I think Bitcoin, to be honest with you, would eventually would survive, because I don't think the current model of fiat currency cannot survive. So something in the end, even if Bitcoin were to drop in the short term, once the house of cards of fiat currency does end up collapsing, and eventually, whether that takes a year or another 50 years, it eventually will. It's going to be replaced by something, and I don't see cryptocurrency going anywhere. So it's just a matter of when. But yes, if for some reason we were to which again I don't think this is going to happen, but if they put unfavorable regulations, of course, that'll have a temporary effect on Bitcoin, but I think overall regulation on Bitcoin will bring in a lot more institutional money depending on what that regulation is. And I think this is more targeting. I think a lot of their comments and Trump's comments and all, I think are more targeting coins, Facebook's Libra, which again is not necessarily that's not necessarily run by Facebook, so they say. But yeah, I think that's the reason this is all coming up. I mean, Bitcoin's been here for 10 years. The market's known about it. It's only since Facebook came out with their coin, supposedly not their coin, but really their coin, that it's become an issue. And I think that's kind of what it's more focused at. But yeah, will it have a short-term effect? It could if we have some bearish news. But at this point, it's all speculation. It's all speculation, and I don't like to do speculation. Overall, I think Bitcoin will end up surviving. All right, Jay Stanger, I hope I'm saying your name, Jay. I apologize if I'm not. No disrespect. Says, great call. Woke up to $9,500 Bitcoin question when scalping on lower time frames. Do you use the MACD or other indicators? Yeah, I do. It depends on what lower time frames you're looking at. I basically use the same things I use on higher time frames, unless I'm talking about very small low time frames, like the like the 5-minute chart or something like that. And that's basically just support and resistance. I'm in and out of that so quickly, guys. It's usually just support and resistance, and there'd be no way I could teach you that online. I would have to be one-on-one with you, and we would have to just be doing that, and that's just not something I'm willing to do for free, which is basically what I'm doing here. It would just take far too much time, and time is money. Every time I'm making these videos, I'm not trading and I'm not spending time with my family, and I want to give back to the community. That's why I do these videos. But to do everything that everybody would ask me to do for that level of training, I mean, I'd be giving up a whole lot of time with my family and a whole lot of money trading. And because I'm not making any revenue now, if I end up making a ton of revenue on these videos or something like that, then of course I'll dedicate more time to this and less time to trading. But until that happens, guys, that's just not gonna. I'm not gonna be able to do that. But to answer your question, yes, I do use the MACD, do use the RSI, but mostly on the very, very tiny, they call them crack time frames, like the 5-minute chart or even the 15-minute chart. It's mostly support and resistance because you're in and out that quickly. Even though I do reference sometimes the MACD, to be fair. All right, John M says, can you make a video of your basic strategy, scalp, swing, trade, etc., favorite setup, execution of trade? Again, it would take a lot of time to do that. My basic strategy, you guys basically know my strategies, guys. I'm an old school trader. I'm a very old school trader, guys. I don't do much I don't do things that are very fancy. I do sometimes do Elliott wave, that type of thing. I dabble a little, not much in hyperwave. I mean, I look at it, it's interesting. Sequential I find interesting. I don't find it that beneficial, but those are things that I reference, but for the most part, my bread and butter, guys, is what you see. MACD, moving averages, RSI, exponential moving averages, support, resistance. These are the things that I reference. These are the, some pattern trading, wedges here and there, every now and then a major pattern, but even not so much. Those are my bread and butter. What's my favorite setup? My favorite setup are things that become very, very obvious, like this head and shoulder that was becoming very, very obvious that it looked to me like it was going to break down. The potential was for a breakdown here, guys, and we just set a very tight stop loss in case it doesn't. And I knew that the next stop would very likely be 10,650. That's a very, very obvious trade to me. We have a bearish pattern confirmed by breaking down on a lot of volume. Price is not bouncing off the zone, just kind of sitting on top of that support. It looked like it was going to break down. It did break down. That's the kind of thing I do. And then, of course, what I like to do when I do think, if I think the potential to continue down, instead of closing my position, I'll just increase my stop loss. So if it does continue down, I could capitalize that. If it does not continue down, it just pops back up, hits my stop, and I'm out. And I was in profit either way. Those are my favorite kind of setups. Again, and it would take me a whole lot of time to even yesterday looking at that setup from 10,000, looking at that divergence, looking at it potentially breaking down there, and then looking for that nice little bounce around that $9,400 area, as we saw perfectly on the daily here as it did. Those kind of setups, those are my bread and butter. All right, John Q says, do you think a drop to the 200-day EMA could happen? 200-day EMA on what time frame? What time frame are we talking about? I'm not going to go look it up, but the $7,200 to $7,300 zone, do I think that could happen? Yeah. I think 7,200, 7,300. Could it happen? Of course it could happen. My bias would be we'd very likely get a bounce at this $8,500 zone, and I'd need to see how it reacts at 8,500. I would look at 8,500 as a potential bottom. But yes, if 8,500 does break down, then without question, this $7,500 to $7,200 zone is definitely going to be in play. But I'm looking for a bounce at 8,500 first. Let's see. JK says, thanks to your bounce theory, so far I'm up $826 since 10 a.m. Unfortunately, paper trading only because I've lost 75% of my trading portfolio last week. One of the exchanges went gravy. Ah, man, I'm sorry to hear that, dude. I'm really sorry to hear that. I'm glad that you're up. I'm glad that you're learning. I'm glad that you're able to make a profit. I just wish it was in real fiat, man. Sorry, JK. Let's see. Omar says, thank you, Omar. Radiant Lunatic, wow, it was great to see you action in real time. Most splendid day to you, dear guru. Hey, thanks, Radiant Lunatic. Edit, please, could you please update us on Binance Coin? It still went well below the 21-day EMA. Does that mean it may go lower? Let's look at Binance Coin. All right, popping out on Binance Coin, looking at the bigger picture, this is on the weekly chart, guys. Does look like, yeah, I mean, it does potentially look like it's bouncing. Of course, I've had these levels up again. I have not changed this. I've not changed this chart since I last looked at Binance Coin. For quite a long time, guys. I haven't been trading Binance Coin. I do hold, in all fairness, I do hold Binance Coin. I think it's an excellent long-term hold, but I have not been trading it even during this downtrend. I'd love to tell you that I sold up here, and and then I bought the dip down here. That's what most people would tell you here. I did not. Binance Coin was a long-term hold for me, not a coin that I had been trading for a little bit of time. But okay, that being said, do we bounce here? Is this a bottom? It could potentially be. This certainly was a major area of resistance here. This is why we've got this marked off. That's why I've got this marked off here. Between 25.25 and 23.42. This was a major buy zone sitting here, guys. And of course, we wicked right into it. Of course, we found this was major support here, or resistance here. Pardon me, resistance now turning into support, bullish sign. If we can get continuation to the upside here, that would be phenomenal. Right now, it looks like we would need to, whoop, that's not what I want. We would need to break back above about 29. If we get above 29, I do think that this thing would want to continue up to at least 32. Let's look at the, actually, yeah, we do actually have this being the overall macro uptrend here. If I go point to point here, I'm getting a lot of opportunities to look at divergence here today. Go point to point, price created a higher low. If this is in fact a low, that's a big if. The candle is not closed, so it's not in yet, but potentially showing some hidden bullish divergence. This being a macro uptrend, I'm looking at the bottom. That means it's hidden divergence. In this case, since we do have a lower low on the RSI, a higher low on price, that is hidden bullish divergence in this case, again, because we're looking at the overall uptrend here, and that would suggest that would suggest a nice bounce, which we've already had that bounce. So could that end up Could that have already played out is the question. Yeah, it's possible, and we do possibly come back down here. But I will say this, even if we do come back down here in the short term, this still does look like a decent buy zone to me. I mean, this was a major area of resistance, guys, so this could still be a major buy zone here, at least maybe accumulating for the long haul, maybe a potential one more bounce here. But I will say this, if we do break down below about 2340, if we get a decisive break below about 2340, and I would say really a daily candle opening and closing below 2340, maybe a 4-hour I could accept. Yeah, maybe a 4-hour if you wanted to front run this thing. But if that does break down, things could get nasty very, very quickly, guys. We could find ourselves down to, around this $17 to $18 area. Really $17 to $19 area would be where I'd be looking for the next major support if we do break down decisively below 2342. But there is still a lot of support there, so I'm not too confident that it's going to break down. We do, to be fair, have a little bit of this being a micro downtrend. We do have a little bit of hidden bearish divergence here, which would suggest a retesting of this $25 zone. So it does look to me like we likely will come back down here and test 2450 to 25 potentially. Potentially here. We'll have to wait and see kind of how this plays out here. But I will say if we do break up above, as I said, 29, then we likely want to continue up here to about 32, actually about 32 even-ish, and then I have to reevaluate there at 32. And to be fair, we did kind of reject there, so that may have even played out that divergence. So I wouldn't even put this is a very iffy call. We'll have to wait and see if it can get above this resistance. If we can get above this resistance, yes. If we get a 4-hour open and close above $29, I will be looking for a move up to about 31.50 to 32. If we get if we do get price dropping below about $27, if we get a 4-hour open and close about below $27, actually, no, below 26.50, then I'm going to say probably a likely drop down to about 24.50 is going to be in the cards. All right, Hayakaten, and I apologize if I'm not saying your name correctly, but Hayakaten says, is a 3-month bull pump off a massive correction technically a trend, or is it just an anomaly? Wondering what you really think about the macro scale. Take it back to December 2017 and reevaluate before we start getting too bullish. Yeah, I kind of answered your question here, and I'm not a perma bull or perma bear. I do think that the bottom is in. I do think that we are in a bull trend now. We're on a bull market now, but I will change that in a heartbeat if we break down below about 6,500. And to say that, is this just an anomaly? First of all, I don't know why you said a 3-month. We've been in this thing. Let's go back to the weekly chart. This thing bottomed out back here in December, the week of December the 10th, and we've been in a bull market. We bottomed out here the week of December the 10th. Yeah, now we had we did have a spike and then a little bit of a correction here, but it only corrected down to about what 3,500. So it didn't come down to our 3,100 to $3,000 zone that we were in. So technically, that bull run, the bull market, began back here in mid-December. And, it continued all the way until, right until this week on July the 8th. So that's almost 7 months. So it's not 3 months, it would be 7 months. In 7 months, even if we reversed right now, you could call that a short bull market, but still a bull market overall, I would say. Now, as far as whether or not it's an anomaly, again, I don't see it as an anomaly, but not until we do break down below. See, we broke out here. This was major support, right? This area right here at, between 6,000, 6,500. This area right here was major support all throughout 2018. And basically, even coming back to November of 2017, this was major support. So when we broke above this on volume, that was my signal that this was a bull market. And then we actually came back down and tested it, and this acted as support. Very, very briefly. It didn't even come all the way down, just testing really the top of that zone. But nonetheless, so that was breaking out on volume here, literally having volume almost quadruple from what the average was in 2018. Tells me that this was a bull market. Now, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say a lot of that is wash trading. Yes, a lot of that is wash trading, but a lot of it back here was wash trading. A lot of it in 2017 was wash trading. So percentage-wise, the volume still went up the same amount. So yeah, no, I would say a 7-month bull run, which is what it would have to be, even if we corrected back down and it's turned bearish, is not necessarily an anomaly. And no, I think that we are in a longer-term bull run. When will my opinion on that change? Again, if and when we break down below this major area of support that was held back in 2017. We broke a major area of support. It turned into, or excuse me, of resistance. What should have been resistance was not resistance. We broke through it. Didn't even really acknowledge it, and then it came back down and started acting as support again. So until we break down back below this zone, I will believe that that we are in a longer-term bull run, even if we come back down and test 6,500. Now, again, if we break below 6,500, I will change that bias in a heartbeat, and I will agree that we very likely are going to come back down and test at least the $4,000 area, if not these prior lows, possibly even lower. But again, until that does happen, my bias remains bullish. But I am not a perma bull or perma bear. And I actually did a video. A week or two ago. It's called "Is Bitcoin?" Here it is, right here. Is Bitcoin still in a bear market? That was done about a week ago, and I explained a little bit more about the arguments between this being a bear market rally and such. So if you want to go listen to that, I would recommend doing that. But I do appreciate the question, and again, even though that's my bias, it doesn't mean my bias is 100% the truth. It's not fact. That's my bias. It is not fact. And again, I will change as a trader. I have to be able to change my bias if and when technical analysis tells me to. Let's see. Tim Led Zem says, "How do you newbie question? How do you set up the 21-day EMA?" Very, very simple. You just come up here. You press indicators. On the indicators, you'll come up here. If you don't know where it is, you just type in EMA. EMAs will come up, moving average exponential. You press moving average exponential. I'm not on my trading chart, so I actually have too many indicators up to show you. But basically what will come up is you will come up here, an EMA thing will pop up, a little EMA indicator will pop up, and it'll have a default EMA. You'll just come up here, hit settings. Once you come up to hit settings, hit inputs, and you just change the input. It's already there, but I'll show you. Just change it to 21, hit OK. You can also change the color and anything else, and then it'll light up the 21-day EMA there for you. All right, Phil the Thrill says, "Hey, Workin, appreciate you putting out videos. Can you show us how to draw all the support and resistance line? You drew one recently based on current price action. How do you decide when looking at new charts which ones to pay attention to?" Yeah, this would be a whole video. I'm not going to be able to get into all of this now, but basically, I mean, you draw support and resistance based on support and resistance line. For example, this area right here, back here in 2018, clearly right around 6,000 was a major resistance. We can visually see that. We can also visually see that we were in a major descending triangle here, just based on resistance here. And of course support. So that's the kind of things that you look at as far as what am I looking at for all the many lines that I draw. Basically I'm just doing that on a much smaller level here, guys. And that's it. That's all I do. And how do I know? Drawing it, like for example, let's do real-time price action now. If I didn't already have lines drawn like I don't on this chart, I can clearly see that this area right here is a major area of support and or resistance. How do I know that? Because I can see price came up, tested it back here, was rejected, it was resistance. I can see price then finally broke up above it and then literally consolidated on top of it here for about 4 days before breaking up. So resistance turned into support back here. So that's why I could be very comfortable and why I was very comfortable drawing that line all the way out here. Fast forward all the way into the future, what happened? We literally bounced right on top of that. So that would be an example. And of course, if I hadn't drawn that line, that would be an example of me drawing a support resistance line, which I had already drawn, but based on current price action as of right now, I can see this would be a major area of support. And of course, if this did break down, I would in the future expect it to act as a potential area of resistance on the way back up, because that's what support and resistance does. All right, Hourly Worker coming in with a question says, I saw Trader on TradingView state that he thinks there's a larger 10-year Elliott wave that could bring the price to 1,100 by 2020 by 2020 or 2021. Have you seen anything like this? I think about it I think it was posted today. I know nothing about ChartView. Do I think it's going to happen? I mean, I've seen on Hyperwave too, potentially going out to down to 1,000. Do I think it can? I think anything can happen in crypto. Do I think it's probable? No, I don't think it's probable. But I mean, if we did break down through all the many areas of support on the way down here, I mean, we could just see, we can look right here, we can see this prior low here is a major area of support. Price came back down, literally bottomed right off of it. It was support back here September. This was resistance back here in July of 2017. So this is a major area. If that did break down, the next major area would be what? If that did break down, guys, the next major area of support would very likely be right in, and we're looking at the monthly chart, by the way, here. The next major area of support would be right in here. Why do I mark it right here? Because I can see on the monthly chart, we came back down, tested this zone, wick, and then we took off. Those wick denotes areas of unfilled buy orders. So that's a demand zone. A demand zone is nothing. A demand zone means unfilled buy orders, means support. So this, I can see, there's multiple areas of support. Price would have to break down. This probably being the last major one. This goes down to about 1,800, really about 2,000. But this would be the last major one. If this does break down, then what people are looking at is this. Let me zoom all the way out. The reason people are coming up with 1,000, yes, I've seen the Elliott wave thing, all this hyperwave, all that, but the major thing it comes back to basic support and resistance. If I come back here, look at the prior peak of the prior bull run was where? It was right here on the prior peak of the prior bull run, right? Was right in here. What happened right in here? This was the prior peak. What happened as I fast forward here in the future? This area was tested and could not get broken through for 4 months. So it was resistance. We went into a bear market from basically the end of 2013 all the way until we bottomed out here in January of 2015. So we had about a 14-month bear market before the bull market started in January of 2015 and then just continued all the way through the end of 2017. So about a 2-year bull market. But the point is, where we came up here to that $1,000 mark, we tried to break through it in January of 2017, rejected. We did break through it here in February, but not decisively. And then, of course, in March, it was rejected again, back down below it. Finally, it took April to where we finally broke back above it and then just took off here. So obviously this $1,000 zone, really 1,100, which is what you have marked off, is an extremely relevant zone, was major resistance, turned into major support, and then took off on that bull run that just blew everybody's mind. So this is why people are saying that very oftentimes when you have a major resistance turn into a major support, that major support oftentimes gets retested. And the traders are not going to be comfortable until this area either breaks back above the prior high of 20,000 or comes back down and tests this area around 1,100. This is why most of those things. Now, yes, I've seen all the Elliott wave thing. I mean, there's 1,000 different hyperwave, Elliott wave, whatever, you know, wave. But the bottom line is it comes back to basic support and resistance. And this is why if price does come back down here, I don't think it will. Again, this is not, I'm not spreading FUD. I don't think this is going to happen. But if it does, it's going to be based on basic this, not your XYZ, not your ABC, XYZ, Elliott wave pattern, none of that. It's going to be basic support resistance. And Rubaid Sadiq, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. I mean no disrespect. But basically, you're asking the same thing about the $1,000 zone, maybe about 3K zone. Is it a possibility? Yes, but not until it breaks below 6,500, as I believe I answered your question there, guys. So I'm going to wrap things there. This is already longer than I wanted. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, please let me know in the comment section below. As always, would appreciate an upvote. If you have enjoyed this content, guys, please remember to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. And as always, guys, if you have found this channel beneficial, you can always throw me a tip in the tip jar, which is also located in the comment section. Always greatly appreciated. Until next time, guys, please take care of yourselves. This is Working, signing out.